Morning everyone. Welcome to the Utilities and Roading Committee meeting. We're running slightly late, but we now have a quorum, so thank you for your attendance. I'll call for apologies. I have apologies from Mayor Dan Gordon and Councillor Nikki Mealings. Are there any other apologies? Right, I'll move those apologies be received. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Ward, I'll put that. All in favour say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Do we have any conflicts of interest? There appear to be none. Item 3, confirmation of minutes. We have 3.1. Minutes of the meeting held on Tuesday the 10th of March. Moved by Councillor Ward, seconded by Councillor Fulton. I'll put that motion that we confirm those minutes. All in favour say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Are there any matters arising? There appear to be none. Move on to item 3.3, notes of a workshop held on the 10th of March. I'll move that we receive those notes. A seconder, Councillor Fulton. I'll put that. All in favour say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you. We have no deputations or presentations, so we'll move on to reports. 5.1, the Woody and Pegasus source capacity upgrade. And I take it we've got Caroline and Rob. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Good morning, councillors. So the purpose of this report this morning is to seek approval to abandon the EQ4 bore. So this is a new bore that we had been working on to try and get the N+1 redundancy for the Wood and Pegasus water supply. So unfortunately, it has not been a successful attempt due to the reasons of the bore not providing sufficient yield and, well, not insufficient yield, because it's got sand issues and turbidity issues, so we are unable to get the water that we require from this well. So the we're seeking approval to abandon this and essentially start again to look for a new source for the Wooden and Pegasus water supply. Happy to take questions.
Right, thank you, Caroline. Councillor Fulton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Caroline. Can you just sort of describe the geophysical area around there? I mean, obviously we've got some successful wells, but what's the risk of sand infiltration in this area, and how sand actually affects the wells, just for people's understanding?
So I think you're right. So this is a well field that we currently have 3 other bores, successful bores, EQ1, 2, and 3. So I think the complexity is this well had been drilled around 2014, where the developer was preparing that for the Wooden Pegasus town centre. So when we established the Pegasus town, the bore was drilled. However, it was never completed at the time. So it was drilled to depth, but because we didn't require it for capacity, it was left. So in essence, it was left for maybe about 11 years or so. And it was not, it was never developed. So when we started looking for N+1 for the Wooden Pegasus supply, the first thought is we have got this well that had already been drilled to a sufficient depth. So if there is an opportunity to continue utilizing that bore that had already been started but not completed, then it would be quite a substantial cost savings. So we started looking into that, but unfortunately, after doing the entire exercise of mobilizing the casing, continued drilling and developing it, we found that it wasn't providing the yields or the water quality that we were expecting. So I don't think we can really say that it's down to the geology of the location.
Ask for clarity because it had been left. You're not suggesting that it had fallen in or that there was anything that we could have done any differently.
Yeah, so that's not what we are suggesting that had happened to the well. It's just the fact that we had tried to use a bore that had been drilled and left for about 11 years.
I think I saw a hand from Councillor Powell.
You did. Morning. Thanks for that. Just a really quick question and sort of slightly related. Where will the water for the Stokes development come from? I'm just thinking about this future, looking at this well was to be put there for resilience, but just wondering about the Stokes development and where that water will come from.
So in terms of the Stokes development, we had signaled to them that they will be required to look for their own source, essentially.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Caroline, could you refresh my memory? Who drilled the original bore, EQ4?
I believe it was Clemens Drilling at the time.
Right. Did we put this out for tender or did we have a short list?
You mean for the EQ4?
Yes.
So this was tagged on to another project that we had going. I think it was Mandeville. Yeah, so we were at the time, we had gone out to open tender for Mandeville Bore 3. And as part of that, we decided, because this was a unique case where we are utilizing an existing bore that had some complexities. So we assessed that, and because of the risk involved, we decided to take that as a variation to the existing well contract that we had that was publicly tendered.
Right, my memory's coming back to me now about that. If you're looking at a further bore, how are you proposing to go to the market?
I believe that we will be following the open tender process for the next bore if we're going to do it from scratch again. So we'll have to go to a hydrogeologist.
So we're not just going to invite one well driller?
No. Yeah, so subsequent bores contracts have all been open tendered.
Right, thank you. I just wondered if the original well sinker had some knowledge or expertise that might be beneficial.
You mean, are you suggesting
it appears to be a sort of unusual science where to find water, and whether local knowledge is helpful, I have no idea. But anyhow, an open tender is what you're proposing.
Well, I think because when we start again, we have to really go back to the consultant and try and identify a suitable location for us to drill the next bore. So depending on where that recommendation is, we will then, it might not be in the same EQ4 area, for instance. It could be somewhere else that has got suitability, for instance, like Gladstone, where we have got 2 other bores. So we'll have to look at the big picture of where is a suitable place to locate the next bore. Right. And then pending that, we will decide how we're going out to tender for that particular bore.
So a consultant will select the location rather than a well sinker?
Correct, yes. So for all our new bores, the exercise is to go out to a consultant to look at the hydrogeological aspects and where we can potentially find good water based on the area and the bores that are around the area and their yields, etc. So they will look at all that and they will recommend to us a suitable location, and we will take it from there essentially. And then we will go out and engage a driller to drill where we think we want the bore, as opposed to letting them decide for us.
Just perhaps give just a little bit more comprehensive answer to some of those questions. I think Caroline's answered them really well. I think the question of, is there just one drilling company who have got the right expertise? There's very few who do. So, and but there's definitely more than one, and they're very good. So there are a few around who've got local experience, experience with this kind of depth and size of bores, the kind of aquifers that we're in. So we are quite selective, and we wouldn't accept a tender from a driller that we weren't confident has got the ability. The other thing I think, in terms of, just to be clear, we get the hydrogeological advice. Ultimately, that's part of the jigsaw puzzle, because then staff have still got to try and figure out where we actually can secure some land or a site to do it that's going to fit that criteria, as well as how that would fit in with the configuration of other wells and the pipe work and that sort of thing. So, but it is definitely something we give a lot of consideration to. But ultimately, you are going a bit blind when you do go, and when you're actually drilling, you do rely on the driller's expertise to help guide some of the key decisions that need to be made in terms of where you screen, when you develop, what kind of yield you'll get. And so that is why it's quite important to get a good experienced drilling contractor.
Thank you. Councillor Bartle.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Not knowing much about the science of this, just struck me that you've got a field with 4 bores, one's not been successful. Is there any risk to the other 3 in that bore moving forward? Or as they're operating, it is very unlikely that you would have further problems?
I don't think so. So the well's been operating really well in the last 12 years, and they're not showing... I don't think it is related, the fact that this wasn't successful.
Thank you.
Probably just saying, they're not going to have it. We're very unlikely to have an impact on each other, and that's part of the consideration. But it is a bit of a tricky place to drill. So we do know that when Pegasus Town was developed, there was another one they got good yield out of, but the water quality wasn't there. And as you can see, we've just had this other one where we got into an aquifer, but we're unable to successfully develop it. So we'd love to be able to say we're confident that the next drill will be all go smoothly. Unfortunately, we can't give you that assurance. We do our best, but it's one of those things over the years. Sometimes it proves very challenging to get a good, successful well, and it can, unfortunately, sometimes involve multiple attempts.
How far apart are the current? Sorry.
Councillor Ward.
I think we're sort of getting to where I was sort of going to ask the question. So they drill, and how do they actually know? Do they do little tests first before they put the big drill down, or do they have to just go down and hope for the best, and then try several places till they get the right spot? How does the science work to know where the best place is without actually putting the big drill down? I suppose they have to do it anyway, do they? So they might, as you said, they might do several drops before they actually hit water. Is that right?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, so the hydrogeological assessment will inform us where is a likely location that we will be able to have a successful well. And then in terms of the drilling, they would normally just proceed with a drill.
So there's no prior knowledge of the aqua flow underneath the ground in that area, that you sort of know that there's sort of like a river of water underneath the ground that sort of flows through. Doesn't apply?
Yeah, so there is no intrusive investigation before they start drilling, but then there will be all that other desktop assessment based on what the knowledge of the area, the hydrology, the other wells that's been drilled in the area, looking at all their profiles, etc. And they will inform what is likely to be in this location. And as far as the actual drilling go, typically we will just start drilling. There is a opportunity to do a telescopic type drill where we Yeah, like a smaller drill just to,
Yeah, it's
for
a test drill.
investigative.
Is
Yeah,
that
so
what you
tip,
do, sort of like a
yeah,
test
so
drill?
I think because we don't really have a lot of experience previously, but as we are drilling quite a few wells in the, in the last couple of years or three,
Yeah.
we are learning more and more about what are the techniques that are available and what should we be doing, looking for water as we go down through the layers. So yeah, so we're gaining experience in the area, but essentially they have to, it has to be intrusive before they understand whether there is going to be a water bearing layer or not. Yeah.
Thank you. That's
Just
all.
sorry, just to finish the answer to Councillor Bartle's question, guesstimating a bit, there's around about a kilometre, it's it's sort of like a kilometre radius between all of the wells in this field, possibly a little bit more. So there's one, the very northern one is on Pegasus Boulevard, just in the golf course, you can actually see it there. That's actually quite a low yielding one. And then there's one in Gladstone Park. There's two actually, I think, in Gladstone Park that serve Woodend. And then on the south side of Gladstone Road, we've got some other ones they call the equestrian wells. So they're sort of all in that area, and we've had variable success over the years in those areas.
Yes, thank you for your question, Councillor Ward. It's a wee bit like a lotto ticket. You don't always get a winner.
I know, it's just, but it's good that you're gaining, as you go, you're gaining more information on where the aqua flows are under the ground, so that's great.
Thank you for your question, Councillor Ward. Councillor Fulton, did you have a question?
Thank you. Yes, Mr Chair. Just taking a look at the background notes, which we would have read, and it notes that most importantly from a cost perspective, the cost to advance the bore to the same aquifer used by EQ1 and 3 was expected to be much lower. There's the question coming to me than fully drilling a bore to the same depth, and that was 98,000 versus say the higher cost of 327. So does that imply that there's always a consideration? I don't know who was best to answer to this. That sometimes if you try and not just save money, but you economise, you go to a lower depth, it's less expensive. You might not find what you want, and then you end up paying more down the track. So is there always a consideration, I suppose, is my question. It costs more to drill deeper, and that's, and to do a more fully sort of investigative project.
I would say that the depth that we go to invariably driven by the yield that we are wanting to achieve. Yeah. So if we are going through the layers and there is potential, so we want a deep bore because that's more secure. So beyond that depth, if we are finding water-bearing layers that is going to be potentially able to fulfill our yields, we would then stop there. So I think the idea about going deeper is we haven't been able to locate that water-bearing layer that's going to be providing that yield that we are seeking. So we have to keep going till we find it, essentially. So that's driven by that.
So there wasn't any implicit cost savings that we could have, that are now going to cost us more because...
I just think predominantly here there was the opportunity of the well that had been abandoned effectively. I think it's unfortunate it hasn't worked out, but I do think even with the benefit of hindsight it was definitely worth the risk. It's just unfortunate. But the main advantage here was that there was that well that had already largely been sunk, and we just needed to extend it a bit further.
Thank you.
Right, thank you for that discussion. We better move along. I'm prepared to move the recommendation. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Ward. Right, thank you for the explanation, Caroline. I think the recommendation is pretty sensible. EQ4 hasn't worked out, so we need to move on. It's just one of those things. There's no certainties in life, I guess, amongst a number of things, including wells. So the bore does need to be decommissioned, and we will need in due course to look at EQ5 if there isn't already one somewhere. And I'm pleased that you're looking at an open tender because there are 3 or 4 local well drillers who may be looking for work, and I know there are also well drillers outside the district who work in the area. So it will be interesting to see the outcome of that. And I notice in E, you're noting that there is budget as part, well, there will be a request for budget as part of the annual plan process. So I think these recommendations are very sensible. We can't flog a dead horse. There is no suitable water supply from EQ4, so I think we do need to move on. Councillor, who seconded that?
It's all
Councillor
right.
Ward.
All I can say is well said, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Any further comment? Councillor Fulton?
Thank you, Mr Chair. I think it's been well summed up, as it probably pains us all to have to consider the thought of spending more money, but it is to a very good purpose, and I'm satisfied from the questions and answers that we've literally investigated this as far as we can, and that, yeah, obviously the premium question is how do we satisfy the drinking water requirements of this community, and we just need to keep looking. So thank you. I'm happy to support the recommendations.
Thank you. Any further comment? In my right of reply, I'll just say that it is very important to provide redundancy because we never know what happens to wells. So it will be very helpful to come up with a viable bore in due course. So with that, I'll put the motion. A to E, all in favour say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your report, Caroline and Rob. We'll now move on to report 5.2. Joanne?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
So this report seeks approval of the transportation procurement strategy. All approved authorities who receive NLTP funding must have an approved procurement strategy. The strategy is required to detail how procurement will be undertaken, particularly with a focus around those subsidised areas where co-funding is provided. The draft strategy sits under and references both our council procurement strategy and the procurement and contract management policy. The key changes to the document since 2022 are outlined under the summary bullet point 1.7 and do have a move towards longer term maintenance contracts to drive efficiency, and also removes the resealing and pavement rehabilitation portions of the current road maintenance contract and would have those tendered separately, so two separate contracts, both with 3-year terms. This would provide more ability for council to more effectively manage those activities, particularly resealing, which is done via a subcontract at the moment through the main maintenance contract. Finally, it also considers the government's procurement rules, which were updated late last year. So following approval by council, NZTA would then consider and endorse the strategy. The draft has already been to them for comment, so I'm not anticipating any major changes. However, if there were any minor changes required, then there is a mechanism for this as noted within the recommendation. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Joanne. Since the old strategy expired in December, how do we get on with NZTA in the meantime?
I've been working very closely with NZTA procurement staff, and they are happy that we have got the draft document already with them for approval. We're not the only council who are still working on their procurement strategies, and I think, to be fair, they've had a number of changes in how they want to see procurement strategies done over the last 6 months. So there's been a bit of time for those to bed into the new documents. So they're very comfortable with where we are and the fact that we were going through our approval process.
Thank you. Councillor Bartle.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Thank you, Joanne, for the report. Just following up, from an efficiencies point of view, as you allocate these contracts to different contractors, as far as different jobs, is there any data gathering of ongoing maintenance or repairs or failures to build a portfolio of information on the way different contractors operate, as far as compared to their prices? Are the more efficient prices, which look really good, do you have more recall to them to sort stuff out down the track versus the more expensive ones? Or, I'm not saying that's the truth, that's what's happening. I'm just asking the question, is there any data to check that, to see whether that is happening? Is it being recorded?
In terms of rework, are you talking more, or just how they generally manage the contracts?
More as far as having to come back an extra ongoing cost to the council to sort out an issue. Because sometimes, hypothetically, if a low-price contract looks good, but the council, after the repair maintenance window, ends up facing more costly repairs to subsidence or anything like that, is there any data collected to sort of analyse that to see how efficient long-term those contracts are? I was just curious.
Yeah, so I think I would say there is, in that when we are doing work through different contracts, we require certain standards to be met. And if there's rework due to deficiencies from the contractor's work, so they're not meeting the quality of work required, then the rework is at their cost. It's not at council's cost or the ratepayer's cost. We've had a number of different situations on different contracts where it might be settlement against new curb and channel, and the contractor is required to come back. We have a defects liability period for capital projects, and we will do a walkover at the end of that 1 year period and look at the condition of the site, whether there are any defects that need to be fixed. So we'll go through that process.
Yep, no, I get that.
Perhaps just a little bit more. Doesn't exactly answer your question in terms of the data, but it does show that we do take that into consideration. So for any time we go out to tender, we generally, we have multiple ways that we could go to tender. The two main ones are lowest price conforming and the price quality method. So lowest price conforming, basically we'll set a bar at a certain height, and if contractors get over that, we'll consider their price. Some don't get over that bar and we won't accept them. Part of the consideration is their track record. So that includes things like what sort of job they've done for us and for others in the past and whether we've had any trouble. The price quality method, we actually give a premium for better contractors. So if they've got a better methodology, experience, track record, all that sort of thing. And that does go some way there. So that it rewards the contractors who, firstly, we don't have so much work chasing them to do a good job in the first place, so we don't have to spend so much of our own time and money making them do a good job, and then also it reduces that risk that we're going to have the situation that you're, the scenario where they do have to come back and do rework. And even though it's at their cost, there's still the hassle to the public, and the traffic management has to go up again, and it's never as good to go back and fix something. So it's definitely something we take into consideration. So it is factored into the tendering, and the kinds of jobs that we'll use the price quality method on are the ones that have got perhaps more risk around them, or you really do want to make sure you've got a good contractor for it, and you can, and in both of those anyway, even in the price quality one, if someone doesn't get over the bar, they don't get in as well. So.
Thank you for that, that's great. But once that period of maintenance, that service chill, that 12-month or whatever the time frame is put in, after that ends, is there any notice or checks done on any ongoing? Because sometimes things happen after that window, or is it that?
I think the answer is yes. We do, in fact, we do actually monitor our entire network, and it does become apparent if there are projects where, the obvious one is a trench might settle out beyond that 12-month period, and we do unfortunately have had some like that in history, but we do our best to make sure that doesn't happen.
Councillor Fulton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wondered about the competition considerations of lengthening some of the contracts there, say to a 6+3, even from the regulator or, you know, the outside public perception. Was that the longest that you believe you could actually tentatively issue a contract to, you know, without effectively seem to be sort of shutting out the market? And I know that's not a question, it's probably more my commentary, but, you know, where are the competition considerations for a new entrance, for instance, for someone who wants to get into the business of resealing pavements and footpaths? You know, how do they get into that market with longer term procurement?
I think that they would need to develop as a business over time, and actually some of those, I guess, particularly the example of resealing, there's significant financial investment in equipment, in sprayers and pavers and all of those things that would mean it would, for a new start, it would be something they would need to build into over time. It wouldn't necessarily be something that someone could just walk into cold and go, I'm going to start a resealing business.
Or is it unusual anyway? You know,
It is
like a
very
bit
unusual,
of chicken and egg,
yeah.
but it's unusual for a new start-up, an entrant to come in and win that work, would be in a position to.
And I think something like resealing is high risk because it doesn't take much for it to go wrong. And when it goes wrong, we all know the outcome of that. So you certainly want, with your resealing, a resurfacing contractor, someone who has very good experience. So you want to be able to see that demonstrated. We have had situations in other types of contracts where new contractors have come through and there's been an ability for them to, as a subcontractor, get experience and then make that move to actually being the main lead contractor themselves. So that's definitely something we've supported around here as a council. The resealing particularly was going to stay as 3 years because we do want to keep that price, that competitive tension. With the actually longer term maintenance contracts, particularly the likes of the road maintenance contract, there can be big investment in things like graders and tow behind rollers, those sort of things, which if you can provide a longer term contract, the investment in that equipment actually can be spread over a longer period, which that means that's where you start to drive and get those efficiencies and gains and cost savings. So that's the rationale, I guess, behind it.
And just two more points in terms of that. We will have, before we go out for our road maintenance contract, we will have the opportunity to review this.
Yes,
So what you're choosing today, you'll still have the ability when before, in fact, it'll be certain that we'll really reconsider our procurement. And we'll take into account the market factors at the time. And one is, you know, can you maximise the use out of long-term equipment that has to be purchased for a contract? But the other thing is, as you will be aware, we recently chose a relatively short term because we were tendering in an unfortunate time where we knew NZTA were out doing multiple tenders and we wouldn't be such a competitive market. So we'll definitely want to retain that ability to be flexible. And so this doesn't commit this council to a trajectory that we must stay on for the next time we go out for the road maintenance contract. There's an opportunity to review it at that point.
Yes, yes.
Councillor Fulton again.
Oh, thank you. Just picking up on that, I also noticed there was a phrase there about low risk work or something. That doesn't suggest that that's necessarily an avenue for a new startup or new entrant to work on as well. Like a low risk, what does low risk mean? It's obviously we don't just issue these contracts lightly, but are there areas where someone can get a foothold and potentially?
Oh, absolutely. And there are areas where we package up small portions of work to be able to do that so that we can support our local community and our local contractors who can deliver some of these works at a very effective, cost-effective price for us. So we definitely take all of that into consideration when we are packaging up our capital works. And a really good example is our curb and channel and footpath renewals. They're relatively straightforward, relatively low risk, and we do pop those out and get some really good prices.
Right, do I have a mover? Councillor Bartle, I thought it may be you. A seconder? Councillor Ward? Councillor Bartle?
No, look, there's nothing really further needs to be said. I think it's pretty self-explanatory, and we've gone through quite a few interesting points on it, so thank you.
Councillor Ward?
No, just we appreciate all the hard work you do, Joanne, and your team, and Jared, so just keep on the good work, thanks.
Thank you. I'll be supporting the recommendation. We do receive co-funding from NZTA, so it is appropriate that there is some accountability to them for their funds. We are quite heavily audited, both by the audit office, but also by these type of strategies. And it was interesting to note that one of the changes is that the government requires consideration of delivery of economic benefits for New Zealand as part of the procurement process. So whether we have that in our overarching procurement policy, I'm not sure, but it looks as though that may be something we could consider if we do revise the policy, Councillor Bartle. So I'm very pleased to support this, and it just gets our ducks in line really with NZTA, so they're very important to us as a source of funds. Any further comment, Councillor Fulton?
Just want to note we're in very good hands. We've got the roading portfolio holder here, we've got the portfolio holder, we've got the Rangiora Eastern Link holder. So I'm really out of my depth really, but I'm happy to take advice here and support the recommendations. Thank you.
Right. Councillor Ward, you've already spoken.
I know, but I just want to say I'm really proud and pleased. I know that our team, our roading team, keep very close to NZTA people and in close contact, and that's their relationship is really, really important for them ultimately to say yes.
Right. Thank you, Councillor Ward. I agree that that relationship is crucial.
Yes.
Councillor Bartle, did you wish to have a right of reply?
No, thank you, all good. Oh, actually, well, we'll just say thank you again to the team. I didn't mention that in what I said, but yes, I think Councillor Ward did cover. But yes, there's a lot involved in this, and the red tape part of it is getting more and more complicated for them. So yes, it's certainly a challenge, but thank you.
Right, thank you. That was remiss of me not to thank Joanne and the team as well, so I'll do so. Right, I'll now put that recommendation A to F. All in favour say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried, thank you. We do need to crack on because we have a workshop at 11 o'clock.
Mr. Chairman, I will be going at 12. If
Well,
we're
we
not
should
finished.
be finished by 12.
Right, well, I'll be leaving at 12 anyway, so thank you.
We don't have too many comments and interruptions. Right, we'll move on to 5.3. This is NZTA's procedural audit report. So Joanne, you again.
Thank you. So this report presents the procedural audit which was carried out by NZTA in January this year. In summary, the audit found that we have effective controls in place and made 4 recommendations for improvement. Staff will work to, or actually we've already started on some of those improvements, but we'll continue to focus on that and to get those implemented. And just noting overall, this was an improvement from our last audit in 2022, and this was acknowledged by the auditor as well.
I'll just add a little bit more. I was fortunate to have a bit of time with the auditor as they were exiting after they'd finished, and they we're quite pleased. We always welcome having external scrutiny come in and look at how we do things and help us improve what we do, but it also, I think it's a good assurance for the public that we're doing a good job. He was very, I think, very pleased. We certainly rank well amongst our peers, and I think a lot of that is the credit to the work that Joanne does in managing her department.
Thank you. Any further questions? I think this is an example. In 5.2, we talked about the procurement strategy with NZTA. Now in 5.3, we're looking at NZTA's auditing process. So we are closely watched, and we appear to be doing particularly well, which is pleasing to see. So no further questions? Do I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Ward and Fulton. Councillor Ward.
Just once again, we're so lucky to have such an amazing team. They've got a huge portfolio, heaps and heaps of work, which the detail is huge, what they have to do, the programs they have to get through. Well done. We really appreciate you guys.
Right, Councillor Fulton.
I think you just endorsed those comments. You can see the attention to detail, and it's probably manifested by the way Joanne answers questions and the way that the reports are set out, and even in today's committees. So yeah, that's reflected in the audit assessment. So well done and good work. Thank you.
Thank you. Roading is one of our big ticket items, I guess, and we are closely monitored and audited. So it's reassuring both for NZTA and the public that we do have external, not investigation, but an external look at how we're operating. So, Councillor Ward, did you want to reply?
No, I'm all good there.
Right, I'll put the recommendation A to E. All in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Now move on to item 5.4, and we have Lorena and Jason, do we? I'll hand over to you two, whoever's taking the lead.
Kia ora koutou, good morning. The purpose of this report is to present the stormwater annual compliance and monitoring reports, and there's 3 of them. So it summarizes the results and recommendations from them. As expected during this work, some compliances and some non-compliances were identified across townships. Each consent has a pathway to achieve compliance by 2040 in the form of stormwater management plans. These plans are currently being drafted for each township, and each report summarizes recommendations and results from the stormwater sampling monitoring programs. And this report seeks approval to submit these reports to Environment Canterbury, and is the first round of monitoring that we have undertaken for Oxford and Kaiapoi in Woodend. I'm ready to take questions.
Thank you. First question, what is the relationship between the stormwater management plans and the stormwater discharge consents? And secondly, and something may have changed, why is this the first year of reporting to ECAN?
Yes, so the stormwater discharge consents have a condition that requires the council to prepare a stormwater management plan. And these consents, in particular for Oxford, Woodend and Kaiapoi, they were approved in 2024. So they came into effect, the monitoring of these consents came into effect on 1st of July 2024. So this is the first round of reporting for that financial year, 2024-2025. Does that answer both your questions, hopefully?
Right, you did. Second question, well, third question, why is Rangiora out of step with the other areas?
Yeah, understandably. So the Rangiora consent came into effect in 2021. So this load of reporting was presented to this committee last year, and the consent conditions for Rangiora have changed the reporting frequency to once every 2 years. So the results for the financial year 2024-2025 for Rangiora will be presented to this committee next year, including financial year 2025-2026.
Thank you, good answers. Any further questions? Councillor Bartle, followed by Fulton.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just following up, curious, I'd not seen this before, but it shows here that, or says here that effective 1st of July 2024, this is on page 208, Environment Canterbury Regional Council, ECAN, granted a Woodend Global Stormwater Network discharge. So is there a body worldwide now keeping a record of this instead of just locally here? Or is this a UN thing, or is it, I've never heard that term used in a local? I was just wondering if you could explain that.
Yeah, I could try my best. It's a regional council requirement. So from Environment Canterbury, they try to regulate the levels of contaminants that are allowed to enter the waterways. And with that, they require councils and other organizations, also private entities or members of the public, to regulate those activities. In this case, the Global Stormwater Consent regulates a whole township. And for example, Christchurch, they have one global consent, which includes the entire city, and they sample that in different catchments and programs, so their consent is a lot bigger. And for the case of our council, just to compare it between two different districts, we hold at the moment 4 of those consents separated between the townships, yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. But just the global concept, there must be a global body issuing these consents then. I assume that's the UN.
That's the Environment Canterbury.
Environment Canterbury.
I think Councillor Fulton, global is used in the sense of a catch-all, not in a global worldwide.
That's what I didn't understand.
Oh, sorry about that.
Yeah,
Yep, yep.
Thank you.
I think it was a misunderstanding of the meaning of global. No, it's not part of the United Nations.
That's what didn't make sense to me. I thought, why is there a global, register? It didn't make sense. But that, it's not my field, obviously.
Oh, great question.
Someone from afar is watching us.
yeah, and it didn't make any sense.
No. Right, anyhow, good to clarify that. Councillor Fulton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd note in the report and recommendations, I think it touches on it too, improvements required before 2040, and that's just to align with the land and water plan. Is there any ability, do you think, for us to actually make those improvements well before that? I mean, it is 14 years hence, isn't it? It's a statutory requirement, I understand, but yeah, do you think we can get there faster?
I think what our SMPs for Rangiora, which is already being completed, as well as Kaiapoi, Oxford, and Woodend, which are being put together right now, that's what they strive to do. So we take a look at the urban areas where we have untreated areas. The 3 priorities, or the 3 categories we look at is untreated areas, land use, so industrial or commercial, as well as then we look at a contaminant load model, which kind of tells us where some of those concentrated contaminants are coming in. And so what the SMP sets out to do and what those budgets set out to do are to put in projects that will improve the quality and help us meet those limits. As far as if we can do it, that's what we're going to strive to do, is meet those guidelines. So
is it fair to say this is a mechanism and an attached budget that allows us to perhaps work with, say, businesses that might be exacerbating some of these issues. I can, probably not the forum to identify, but you can work it out from the reports in Oxford context and others, you know. There are little sticky issues, aren't there, with potentially some exacerbators of discharge. So this enables us to work more actively with those businesses or property owners. Is that right?
Correct, yeah, and some of the testing and sampling we do throughout the year, that'll lead to investigations, and from those investigations, Lorena will go out and audit certain sites that we deem the most high risk. And from there, she'll write an audit report for the business and say, we would like to see some improvements here, here, and here, and then kind of give them a time frame of where they could start to meet those recommendations and hopefully meet our guidelines. And that ultimately comes from our stormwater bylaw. And so if they don't meet those guidelines, we have some other actions we can go through to meet that.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chair. But may I suggest in my role that there is probably a workshop or other forum we can address some of the particulars of, you know, some of these sites, because they're clearly, yeah, there's some things to be dealt with.
Thank you. I know to me the aim is to achieve full compliance by 2040. Are staff confident that that's achievable?
I believe so, but also the investigations that we carry out every financial year will inform the how to get there, but I think so.
Well, the measures you've listed in 4.3 is your roadmap how to achieve compliance, I guess.
Yeah, the recommendations on 4.3 and onwards are the roadmap stemming from the sampling from this year. Maybe when I report next, we have more information to inform better whether something has been resolved already or if something has become more significant. So one of the key things from the SMPs was to become flexible, like to be flexible as well, to be able to adjust with the findings that we're able to find. Yeah. So this is the initial roadmap that will inform further, but the SMPs are more powerful as well because they look at it in more detail. I'm just looking at the data from what we have been collecting this last financial year, if that makes sense.
I think it's a really good question because it is quite difficult. We're trying to retrofit stormwater treatment into existing towns. We have a catchment that's open to the public. You know, whatever goes on the land, you know, vehicles driving around, people doing stuff in their backyard, dogs doing their thing. It all ends up in, even wildlife, birds and that sort of thing, it all ends up in the stormwater. I think we've got the right process in place. So we're monitoring. You have got provision in the long-term plan for the team to be able to continue the work that they're doing, as well as capital works, which we've got a series of those. So that's something that we'll have to be conscious of, just keeping assessing whether we, you know, what sort of level of confidence we have, and reset that if necessary. And the good thing is, I suppose, we do have a reasonably long pathway to 2040. But yeah, I think we're confident that we've got the right process in place and that you have got budget provision available to achieve it.
Thank you. Any further questions? Right, do I have a mover? Councillor Fulton? I'll second it. Oh, Councillor Bartle? Right, moved Fulton, seconded by myself. Councillor Fulton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In a way, I am pleased that there's quite a long pathway, because I can see that yeah, we do have some challenges as as Jared intimated there, in an open catchment with all sorts of sort of compounds and that may enter the waterways and factors that may affect stream health. But on the whole, I think it's a good thing that that we're working with ECAN on a long-term approach, and hopefully there will be some sort of budget to support that. I would say actually I can see some scope in the future for our district planning to sort of take consideration of what our either intensive industries or what our potentially our sources of pollutants into waterways are. But that's for another day. We've no sooner just completed this district plan than we're into probably a new regime. So yeah, I'm happy to support this, and I look forward to the improvements in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. I too will be supporting this recommendation. We're really tidying up our backyard in one sense, and as Jared pointed out, we don't have a lot of control what goes in to the wastewater, and retrofitting improvements to an existing network will not be easy or cheap, I suspect. We're now monitoring, measuring, so we're getting data, and we know the task ahead is not insignificant. So I'm pleased you have aspirations of achieving full compliance by 2040, and you certainly have a fairly lengthy list for the various areas. So I wish you well in achieving that. It is really, in some respects, a first step, following on from Rangiora, where we had a similar discussion. So very happy to support this. I think it's a step in the right direction. Any further speakers? No? Councillor Fulton, right of reply.
Thank you. No.
Right, that being the case, then I'll put the recommendation A to H. All in favour, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you for your report, Jason and Marina.
So there's just a slight issue. The quarterly monitoring report that's due to be considered by you now is missing an attachment. So Kelly Simpson's just running off to get it printed for you, because the attachment is what you're actually approving. It's quite short, so we'll get that to you. I just wonder if we're better to take the Infrastructure Resilience Fund report first. I'm happy to introduce that. Just to give a bit of time. I know Melanie's not here, but I can get that underway. Right,
we'll move on to report 5.6 and come back to 5.5 later. 5.6, we have Jason, Melanie. Do we?
No, but we've got me, so and hopefully they'll turn up. But look, this is just a regular update report that you receive on the infrastructure resilient team's work. So you'll be, I think the key points are all of the maintenance checks and the service requests from the 2025 event have been completed, which is a good milestone. And the team are well underway with the investigations, the more detailed investigations that they do. And then also they're closing out the 24-25 capital program, and we've got some detail there on the current financial year capital program that's underway. So generally, it's all tracking reasonably well, but happy to take any questions.
Any questions? There being none. Do I have a mover? Councillor Ward, seconder. Councillor Bartle. Councillor Ward.
Just once again, lots of projects and lots of work. Flood recovery, we just never know when we might need to be doing it again, as they're finding out in the North Island right now. And I know that we've put so much effort into mitigating risk when we have these weather bombs, and all I can say is well done, and we're very pleased that you're looking after us as best you can. And also keep up the great work. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Bartle?
Yes, thank you. It's good to see that a lot of this work is completed, apart from a couple that you're still working through, but it was only last year, so there's a huge workload to have got through, so well done. Thank you.
Councillor Fulton?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, it's excellent to see the completion of the works. It's possibly warrants some sort of external commentary as well, whether that's comms team or some other outlet, because we all hear about the work that has to be done and needs to be done, but when it's completed, we should give ourselves a pat on the back.
Thank you. I think you're quite right that some comms around the work this team has been doing and the progress that they've made would be a good news story. Are there any other questions before I carry on? Right. We did have a mover and a seconder, so. Yep. I think we were doing questions, but we've moved on from there. I'm more than happy to support these recommendations. There's good progress being made here. There are only 2 items, maybe 3, where options are currently being looked at. All the other ones are either completed, out for tender, or under construction. So it's very pleasing and reassuring. The bad news is winter is approaching, and there may be a whole wallop of other things headed our way. We'll have to wait and see. Councillor Ward, did you want to write a reply?
No, but just we just missed this bomb that went out to sea, so maybe we might be lucky this year. So let's hope, and then that would help help the bottom line. So but I know that we're prepared for anything that's coming as best we can. So thank you.
Thank you. Right, I'll now put that recommendation A to F. All in favour say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
I'm finished.
Sorry.
That's all right. We moved on. Jared filled in your absence. Are we?
I think we've got copies of the attachment for the report that we've just skipped, right. So we can get those circulated.
We might do the portfolio updates and then come back to 5.5. Right, portfolio updates, item 6. The first one is myself. The staff have been busy. Dig outs and pavement repairs are the main focus currently ahead of winter, which is fast approaching. Ashley Street dig out repairs are coming up. 1 lane of traffic will be detoured during this work, and temporary traffic lights will be in place. All pavement rehabilitation sites are now complete for the year, and resealing work has been completed with monitoring and sweeping of loose chip continuing as required. Capital projects, the Kaiapoi to Pine Acres cycleway connection is progressing well. Pigeon Contracting are replacing the curb and channel in Akaroa Street. This work has been slow to progress, and I have a resident who contacts me weekly and reminds me of that. River works are to be undertaken at the Makariri River Bridge pre-winter to address scour issues, and that includes placing a rock rib wrap, whatever that may be. Blake Street, new footpath commences this week and is expected to take 3 weeks to complete, and tenders have recently closed for minor footpath improvements, which includes construction of the Highfield Lane footpath. that we discussed last year. Other items, workers continuing on the new sewer main in Percival Street. The northbound lane has been closed with a detour in place, and the work is progressing well. Main Power are working on Island Road in Kaiapoi and have a one-way closure in place. All in all, it's been a very busy construction season, with the focus now moving to preparation ahead of winter. So are there any questions? Councillor Ward?
Can you just confirm, have they finished the resealing of the driveway at the airfield? Has that been completed?
I understand that has been completed, but do you have an update?
It's green spaces.
Yeah, I also understand, but I can't confirm that 100%. It is a green space project, but it is being managed by PDU.
Yeah.
And I just seem to recall that it has been.
That's cool, thank you.
Pretty sure it has been, but like Gerard, I'm not 100%, but 99% sure.
Thank you.
And not related to roading, but I understand the reseeding of the runway has occurred or is occurring as we speak.
That's been ongoing for the last 2.5 weeks, and I think it's been very successful and timely, and I have to compliment the staff, Green Space staff, on their communication and their working in with the aviation industry, keeping away from warbirds, and then working into the night to keep the airfield open as long as they can. I have to compliment them on their work.
They were doing night works.
Yeah.
And while it's not strictly part of roading, I guess aircraft are a form of transport.
Yes, no, they've been doing a wonderful job.
Right, drainage, stock water and three waters. Councillor Fulton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As circulated just now, drinking water, well, as a precautionary measure, the primary water source for the Oxford rural drinking water supply has been changed to McFedrin's bore number 2. This change was implemented as there was an upward trend in the nitrate levels in bore 1 since January 2026. Bore 1 has been turned off and is no longer used to supply the community drinking water supply. It's important to note that bore 1 still fully complies with the New Zealand drinking water standards, and the bore has only been turned off as a precautionary measure. A news article has been posted on the council's website to update the community on the change, and it was the subject of a presentation to the Oxford Hoka Community Board just a few evenings ago, and we had a pretty full and thorough sort of series of questions, and partly in response to Louis and his nitrate group up there in Oxford, and we are, I could say, personal commentary, I think the communication with him and his group has been really, really good, and it's improving all the time. And in fact, I think he came back and gave us some really good positive feedback about Gerard and his team about the way he's sort of lifting the game there, keeping everyone updated. Moving on, the annual drinking water quality assurance rules reporting information for the 2025 calendar year has been provided through to the Water Services Authority, Taumata Arawai. This was fully compliant with the exception of some non-compliances related to data outages or chlorination and protozoa compliance before UV installation projects were completed. This will feed into the Council's drinking water compliance report for 2025-26, and this will be reported through to the UNR committee later this year. Wastewater, Environment Canterbury have issued an infringement notice related to the dry weather overflow from Rangiora wastewater treatment plant last year. This incident occurred unexpectedly during planned maintenance to divert wastewater through a bypass line. The overflow was quickly stopped. Testing of the South Brook was undertaken and Environment Canterbury notified. Signage was erected on the lower Cam River at Smith Street as a precautionary measure. Council staff had explained to Environment Canterbury that this was an accidental overflow which resulted from an unexpected discharge, and the council responded in a proactive, responsible and professional manner. Additionally, the water quality testing undertaken by council in the South Brook showed some elevated E. coli results, but these were not above levels that can occur naturally in the stream. However, despite this, ECAN still issued the infringement notice with a $3,000 fine. I'll leave that hanging there. Percival Street sewer main project is progressing well and is on track to be completed by the end of June 2026. As for drainage and stock water, Oxford Loop maintenance and improvement works have been programmed to be undertaken this month prior to the trout spawning season, and I've, in my role in Hoka drainage, been very involved in that with colleagues, so yeah, that's great to see that underway. Even more so, the Mandeville Resurgence Drainage Upgrade Stage 1A is expected to start construction this month and is planned for completion in June 2026. So I'm really excited about that. I'm sure colleagues are as well, have been following this process for some years. The first round of drainage advisory groups has been completed. Members are pleased to have GSL, that's Ground Services Limited, representative attend these meetings. So thanks very much. Any questions? You, Mr. Chair.
Any questions for Councillor Fulton? Councillor McLaren?
Thank you. Just back to the ECAN infringement notice. Did they give any explanation as to why they took a punitive approach to the council when it was responded to very well by the sound of it? What their thinking was behind that? Thank you.
Yeah, that it's probably actually fair to say there's two reasons. It's pretty. ECAN are now actually, with Tamara Arawai, having oversight of what's happening in that regulatory space. I think they are noticing that they want to make sure they're doing everything by the book. So I think there's a bit of a flavour there that's coming out in terms of compliance reporting. They're being a lot more stricter, and where there is actually any issues, they're taking it through the enforcement process. It's actually quite it's disappointing that we've ended up with that infringement notice. I actually felt that we did respond professionally and responsively. So I think from a staff perspective, we're disappointed, but there's definitely lessons learned for us there in terms of making sure we avoid events like this in the future.
Thank you.
Jim, own comments. Just picking up on that question, I understood that the purposes of potentially infringement notices and or even the threat of infringement notice was to change and improve behaviour, and I'm not sure that publicly castigating us with a $3,000 fine is going to do a bean to change what they consider to be our shortcomings. And I just really don't think that it's well, the intent may be right, but I don't think it's going to actually change anything that couldn't be remedied by a good relationship between professional council staff on both councils. So that's my little speech on that one. Thank you.
Thank you. I thought that approach was harsh myself, but it is what it is. It'll come out of your budget, Councillor Fulton. Right, solid waste. Councillor Mealings isn't here, but in her stead we have Jared with a few comments.
Yeah, there's nothing really from an operational point of view to update, but there have been the two meetings, the Canterbury Waste Joint Committee meeting and the Regional Landfill Committee. So just some points from there. From the Waste Joint Committee, so there's work underway to develop a regional waste and circular economy strategy. This will be brought to the committee for approval to agree upon priority materials for staff to focus on for the next 3 years. There's a disaster waste management plan progressing, and it was progressed with some workshops throughout several districts, and ECAN and Waimakariri have engaged with Whitiora to seek their input into our draft waste management plan, disaster waste management plan. And there's also been some work preparing regional education messaging to ensure there's consistent messaging throughout the region, which I think is very important. So no matter which part of the region you're in, you should be able to know what you should be putting in recycling or what should go in your rubbish and that sort of thing. The Regional the Regional Landfill Joint Committee that was held, that included Transwaste presenting on their draft statement of intent. Key points: landfill operations are compliant with regulations. They're working on a report to distribute to all of the territorial authorities on emissions generated from each of the authorities' waste, so we should receive that for Waimakariri. And they are looking at the impact of fuel prices on transport operations, and they'll be advising that in the next few weeks. There was also some PX considered in that meeting. Perhaps I'll just maybe give the committee a UNR manager's update on fuel,
Right.
if the chair would like me to.
Yes.
If it would be in order. Look, where it is certainly something, the fuel is going to have an impact on costs. And it's actually, we haven't landed on exactly what that means in terms of current contracts. So we are aware that contractors are incurring quite substantial costs with fuel. If you think about across all of our activities, waste, refuse pickup, that's a lot of trucks running around every day, and they consume a lot of fuel. Civil construction contracts do use a lot of diesel in particular to operate the equipment and machinery. Or, you know, you just think about the graders running around in our road maintenance contract, so on. So look, I won't comment at all on any existing contracts because that's be inappropriate in public to talk about how they potentially could be managed. But in terms of looking forward, it's likely we'll see an increase in particularly our construction costs, and over the longer term, if the fuel prices remain high, all of our contracts do have some CPI factors that come in, which include the likes of fuel, so that would that'll potentially be an increase in cost. Our intention is to give you some steer on that as part of the annual plan staff submission, so that we can at least give you an idea of whether or not that has any impact on the annual plan. And we're trying to navigate the best way forward to manage that on behalf of the council. So it certainly is. It's going to be a material issue for us, but I think something that's going to be manageable.
Thank you, Jared. Any questions? Nope. Mayor Gordon is absent, so no update from him this month. We'll now go back to report 5.5. There were 2 or 3 pages missing.
So just to be clear, in the agenda, you have got the report and you've got the internal affairs letter. The 2 sheets that have got the colour, the quarterly monitoring report, water service delivery plan, that's actually what we're asking you to approve. You've just been delivered those. So it's not very big. So hopefully you've had an opportunity to look at it.
Apologies,
so,
my
apologies.
photocopying skills weren't that great.
Right. Well, over to you, Jane and Karen.
Good morning. So this quarterly monitoring report provides an update on how we are tracking against the implementation of the Water Services Delivery Plan. It is the first quarterly report to be provided, and it will be provided to DIA as required under legislation by the end of April. These quarterly reports are required to be submitted to DIA until the conclusion of the Water Services Plan implementation. Apologies that the report itself wasn't provided with your pack, but I can quickly run through that if easiest, just to explain the layout of the report. So this is a DIA template that we have been provided, so that has been populated. The first part A, which is the progress update, provides the main key activities that happened between January and March. So that's from the 1st of January to the 31st of March. And then the next page details the expected activity during the next quarter, which is April through to June. The next page talks to part B. This is additional monitoring information, and this takes what has originally been provided in the letter of acceptance. And basically, we only had 1 point provided in the letter of acceptance, which is provided in that box there, which is the timeline of the implementation of the in-house business unit. And an overall timeline has been provided in response to that for submission to the DIA. Just one other point that was provided in the report, which is around the assessment report, which was an additional document provided in response to acceptance of our of the Water Services Delivery Plan. The assessment report has not been, it had a number of points which required us to monitor. This has not been requested by DIA, so a response to that has not been provided.
Right, nothing further, Carolyn? Am I correct in thinking that this internal business unit is not yet operating as such?
Yeah, that is correct. So our program at the moment is by the 1st of July this year to have all of the framework in place, but officially we're saying we'll be fully set up and ring-fenced by the 1st of July 2027. So effectively we want to have the framework and structure in place this year. And there are some things that we need to commence reporting on from the 1st of July this year. So we want to make sure we have the structure, but officially it's a fully ring-fence internal business unit established by the 1st of July 2027.
I was wondering, when the internal business unit is up and running from July 27, will it assume responsibility for the chlorine exemptions that have been applied for previously?
Effectively, there is no change. You'll see one of the tasks that we've got here is effectively a statement of expectations in terms of what the council would like the water services unit to undertake. So as part of this process, there's going to be no effective change to the work program and how we operate, and there will be the ability for the council to direct the water services unit, internal business unit, to undertake tasks such as the pathway to chlorine exemptions.
Thank you. Any further questions? Right, I'm prepared to move the recommendation. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Ward. Right, I'd just like to say it is good to see progress being made. And in fact, the more I think about it, I think we certainly made the right decision by setting up an internal business unit. And I think our ratepayers are going to reap the benefits of that in years to come. I guess it takes time, and I do note that the approval sent to the Chief Executive was in July last year, accepting our plan, and that sort of set us off on our current direction. So good to hear from these, and I'm assuming we'll be hearing from you every quarter as matters progress.
Yes, that's correct.
Right, thank you. So keep up the good work, and we look forward to July 27. Councillor Ward.
I just want to say a really good decision, great work by Jeff and all of you, the Water Services new team, and we're in great hands, and we're leading the way, we're showing the way, as we always do, so well done.
Thank you. I'm not going to reply to myself, so I'll put the recommendation. A to C, all in favour say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you, Jane and Kelly. We look forward to seeing you in 3 months. Right, I have no questions under standing orders, no urgent general business. So we'll now move on to matters to be considered with the public excluded. Where are we? There should be a motion here somewhere. I'll move that the public be excluded from the following parts of the proceedings of this meeting 9.1 to 9.3 for the reasons set out in the agenda. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Ward. I'll put that motion. All in favour say aye. Aye.